The ABC 7 News I-team revealed 9 companies, part of the Plumpjack Group founded by Governor Newsom, received millions in funding through the Paycheck Protection Program. The intent of the federal program was to keep small businesses afloat during the pandemic.
New data released by the SBA and analyzed by ABC 7 News indicates Plumpjack businesses, including wineries, bars, and restaurants, 8 of which are partially owned by Governor Newsom, received nearly $3 million in PPP loans. Good evening, I'm Dan Ashley.
And I'm Ahmed Dates. We want to remind those of you just joining us, in 2018, Newsom placed his ownership interest in the Plumpjack Group into a blind trust. This means he would have no knowledge or role in the company's business decisions made during his time in office.
And tonight we've heard from hundreds of you responding to the story, many of whom are small business owners who struggle to get access to this PPP money.
Yeah, ABC 7 News I-team reporter Stephanie Sierra joins us live to share this new reaction to our investigation. Stephanie.
Yes, Amma and Dan, over the course of the past 24 hours, we've heard from dozens of small business owners who shared their experiences struggling to get access to this money. It gives us a closer look at who had the resources to put forth the best loan application and those who didn't.
Seems like a lot of the large companies were being taken care of by the banks first, and the small guys like me were kind of left on the sidelines.
Joe Field is the owner of a Concord-based comic book store called Flying Colors Comics. We followed his journey to get a PPP loan since the federal lending program first opened on April 3rd. Field applied that day, but struggled to get money for months. ABC 7's data analysis found one of the Plumpjack businesses, Villa Encinal Partners LP, that received more than $918,000, got their loan approved on April 14th. That's 11 days after the lending program launched. It took Field 90 days to get his $40,000 loan approved. He tried applying through 4 different banks and eventually received the money in late June.
It wasn't until that day, with 2 hours to spare, that we finally were able to get through.
Villa Encinal Partners LP is one of at least 9 companies of the Plumpjack Group that collectively received nearly $3 million in PPP loans. 8 of those companies Governor Gavin Newsom partially owns. It's important to note Newsom's interests in those 8 companies are in a blind trust. According to Newsom's 2019 Statement of Economic Interest, he received a gross income over $100,000 just from Villa Encinal Partners. This company, which is traced back to the Plumpjack Winery in Napa, received more than $918,000 to retain 14 employees.
That doesn't balance out.
Joan Kotz owns John Kotz Farms, a family-owned winery business in Lodi. She received a PPP loan worth around $1.3 million and retained 141 employees. To put that in perspective, ABC 7's analysis found the average number of employees retained for every California winery that received more than $900,000 is 148.
The point of the loans were to retain as many as possible and really help businesses get through this tough time.
Kotz retained 141 employees with around $1.3 million. Assuming 60% is used towards payroll, a requirement of the SBA, that amounts to roughly $5,800 per employee for a period of 3 months. As a comparison, doing the same math, each of the 14 employees at Villa Encinal Partners would have received around $40,000 for a period of 3 months. ABC 7 reached out to Plumpjack Management Group a second time, requesting payroll records to see how each of the 14 employees of Villa Encinal Partners were paid. We received this statement. Plumpjack Management Group is operating within the federal guidelines created for COVID-19 SBA loan recipients. These funds have been critical in keeping our staff employed and continuing our operations. Any implication that we have done anything outside of the guidelines or that we have filed for forgiveness on the loan is irresponsible.
You know, if somebody ended up with, close to $1 million and had 14 employees, somehow, the math just doesn't work.
Steve Mayer is an accountant and financial consultant who's helped more than 200 businesses in San Francisco apply for PPP loans.
To be honest, the entire process was a mess unless you were able to either figure it out yourself or get professional help. The little guy mom and pop people were completely passed over.
We have made a 3rd attempt to reach the governor again today, but have yet to hear back.
And now some reporting out of Politico, at least 4 members of Congress have actually reaped the benefits in some way from that $500 billion small business loan program known as PPP that they actually helped create. Sabeel Marcellus is joining us now with more details. Sabeel, what's the situation here?
You know, Melody, I've been following this closely, all the struggles many small businesses had in trying to secure those Paycheck Protection Program loans. And what we're finding out now is that there are actually some lawmakers who are able to secure those loans for themselves, for businesses where their spouse worked or their family owned. So we have the names of 4 lawmakers so far. There may be more, 2 Republicans and 2 Democrats. Now, the 2 Republicans are Congressman Roger Williams of Texas. He owns an auto dealership, a couple of them, body shops and car washes. And also Congresswoman Vicky Hartzler of Missouri. Now, her family owns farms and equipment suppliers in the Midwest. On the Democrat side, there's Congresswoman Susie Lee of Nevada. Her husband is the CEO of a casino developer, and Congresswoman Debbie Powell of Florida. Her husband is a senior executive at the Fiesta Restaurant Group. Now, it's important to note that that business has returned their Paycheck Protection Program loan. But the reason why this is so concerning is, first off, there were so many small businesses who really needed the money that struggled to get it in the first place. Then we found out that there were some really well-connected major businesses that were actually publicly traded companies that got some of that money. Some returned it, some have not. And on top of that, what we're seeing is that the Treasury Department and the Small Business Administration are reluctant to release the names of the businesses who actually received the loans and possible individuals that are connected to lawmakers in Washington.
And Sabeel, of course, it's not actually illegal for these lawmakers to take the loan, right? But to your point, it's this political optics side of things. So do we anticipate there to be some, heat and grilling that these lawmakers will face?
Right. So it does raise a lot of questions when it comes to conflicts of interest. Now, Democrats did try to push through legislation that would have required for the names of the companies and individuals who received Paycheck Protection Program loans to be disclosed to the public. But that effort was stopped by Republicans. But Democrats are likely not going to give up this fight, and neither are journalists, because we want to know who received those loans and what the process was.
We do indeed. Thanks so much, Sabeel Marcellus.
Got data on about 660,000 loans Monday. It's the first time the government has disclosed any of the borrowers of the money so far. There are at least a half dozen members of Congress who played some role in either approving the rules or voting on them, and also have received money. There are still big companies that are getting millions of dollars by applying because they have many different affiliates or franchises and lumping all those together and getting millions of dollars. There are companies affiliated with President Trump. There's no rule preventing them from getting money, but when they get money, and some of them are tenants of the president's, they're passing that money on in rent to the president. Some people have a problem with that. Elaine Chao, the Secretary of Transportation, and also the wife of Senator Mitch McConnell, her family's company is in shipping, and they got millions of dollars from the program. Kanye West's company, Yeezy, they make really nice sneakers, clothing. Some of it's very expensive, but they're also a retailer. And retail obviously has been crushed by the pandemic. They got money. Representative Kevin Hern of Oklahoma, he had a role in trying to shape the rules early on because he thinks franchises, which are usually, locally owned businesses at some level, but also connected to larger corporations at another level, he thought they should be able to get more money. Hern's companies, his fast food franchises, have received between $1 million and $2 million. Mike Kelly from Pennsylvania, his family has long owned car dealerships outside of Pittsburgh, and they received between $450,000 and around $1 million to support 97 jobs. The problem with members of Congress in particular is that there is typically a rule requiring a member of Congress and some federal officials to go through an ethics review before they can get a Small Business Administration loan. And in this case, because the government was trying to get the money out so quickly, the administration just issued a blanket waiver. They said everyone's getting a waiver, so you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to go through that extra level of verification. They aren't necessarily breaking any rules, and some people don't have a problem with it. I mean, a lot of people will say, listen, if these big chains are passing the money on to workers, fast food workers, for instance, what's the problem with that? Other people say, this is meant for small businesses. It's meant for businesses with under 500 employees. Why would a chain with many, many different locations be able to get millions of dollars from that? I really just think we're at the tip of the iceberg in terms of understanding where the money has gone, and we're going to need to know more.
Released federal records show a business owned by the family of a North Carolina congressman received a $10 million Paycheck Protection Program loan. The Budd Group is one of 15 businesses in the Carolinas identified as receiving the maximum forgivable loan amount. And tonight, Rep. Ted Budd, who represents Statesville, Salisbury, and Mooresville, is responding after the defender's Nate Morabito asked, where's the money?
The Republican easily won re-election in November. As his spokesperson pointed out, it's not illegal for family members to receive PPP loans to keep workers employed.
It's the most frustrating thing I've ever been through.
Around the same time, small businesses in Representative Ted Budd's congressional district
We waited 34 days.
waited weeks to receive their PPP loans.
It was quite a nightmare.
Public records show the Budd family's facility services business received the maximum loan amount on May 13th, just 3 weeks after the congressman supported the Paycheck Protection Program, but said this about government pandemic assistance.
This was necessary, but our small businesses, they don't want a handout. They just want to get back to work.
Federal Election Commission records show Representative Budd's father, the Budd Group's founder, Richard Budd, and the congressman's brother, CEO Joseph Budd, have given a combined $14,400 in campaign contributions to Representative Budd since 2019. The congressman's bio touts his past experience working for the family business. His spokesperson said Representative Budd hasn't had any ownership in the Budd Group since 2003, long before he got into politics in 2016. In a statement telling us Representative Budd is proud to have supported PPP because it saved over 50 million jobs. Also, Representative Budd has a strong set of guiding principles, and that's how he makes his decisions. He's never made a decision based on a campaign donation, and he never will.
It raises alarm bells for the creation of the program. It raises alarm bells for who actually had access and whether or not there were small businesses that were being left behind.
Jenna Cruz is with Accountable.us, a nonprofit government watchdog that prides itself on being nonpartisan. She can't help but wonder which small businesses lost out when bigger ones like the Budd Group secured big loans.
There are, folks, your corner deli, your grocery store, who weren't able to get $10,000 loans.
If a program is designed primarily for small business, it should be targeted to small business.
Just days ago, Taxpayers Against Fraud Chairman Neil Getnick shared his frustration that $10 million Small Business Administration PPP loans went to larger businesses.